There are days when the simple act of getting out of bed already looks like a battle. You feel like you are carrying the world on your back, accumulated stress, anxiety knocking on the door, responsibilities that keep growing. And in the midst of all this, you still expected you to smile, produce, take it firm. But what if I told you that there is a divine invitation to really rest? Not that superficial rest of a weekend off, but a deep relief that calms the soul and restores the strength. Jesus is not offering a magical shortcut, but a real exchange, his burdens heavy for comfort and the inner peace that only he can give. Matthew 11:28 is not just a beautiful mural verse, it is a direct call to your heart. And maybe, only maybe, this promise is exactly what you need to turn the key to your day or even your life. Get ready to dive into a journey of liberation, surrender, and hope. Let's talk about how to live this promise in practice without magic formulas, without heavy religiosity. Just a sincere relationship with God, honest prayer, support from the Christian community, and the discovery of what it really means to rest in Jesus. Sometimes it seems that life has decided to test our resistance. The rush of work, the slips accumulating, conflicts in relationships, and that constant feeling that we are never doing enough. All of this is stacking up, and when we realize, is already carrying burdens that were not even ours to start. This is where tiredness is not only physical, it invades the mind, the heart, the spirit. The weight is real, and pretending that everything is okay only worsens. The truth is that living trying to control everything alone is fertile ground for stress and anxiety. It's like trying to keep several dishes spinning at the same time. 1 hour, one falls. And when it falls, the feeling of failure joins the mess. But what if this self-sufficiency that society so glorifies is moving us away from true spiritual strength? There is a limit for which we can stand alone. Recognizing this is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is curious how the current culture insists on pushing us to this unbridled race. There is always someone with a new life hack, a miraculous productivity formula. But no one talks about silent exhaustion, insomnia, anxiety outbreaks in the work bathroom. These are signs of alert, our body and our soul shouting for rest, for comfort, something that goes beyond a simple "will pass." If you feel pressured to look strong all the time, know that you are not alone. Many within the Christian community also face this internal charge. Even being a Christian does not exempt us from problems, but offers us a different way to face them. And this way begins with the humility to admit, I need help. It is at this point that the true transformation begins. We often confuse handle everything with maturity, when in fact it is just disguised pride. We try to hold the end silent, smiling outside and sinking inside. But Jesus' invitation is not to be lonely heroes, but yes, since surrendered. When we open to this reality, something changes. We see the pressures of life not as sentences, but as signs that we need something or someone greater. Have you noticed how even minor problems seem huge when we are on the edge? A delay, a criticism, a difficult conversation. Everything becomes a storm. This is because we are overwhelmed with no room to breathe. The tired soul sees everything in shades of gray. So, before trying to solve the world, maybe it's time to look inside, recognize the burdens it carries, and ask, does I really need to continue this way? The first step to relieve this weight is not to do any more, but stop. Stop to listen, to reflect, to recognize that there is a better way. And this is precisely where Jesus made in Matthew 11:28 a direct invitation to those crushed by the pressures of life. But before accepting this invitation, we need to understand where so much weight comes from. And that's what we're going to talk about now. In the midst of chaos, when everything seems to escape from the hands, Jesus approaches a phrase that echoes as a relief to the soul. Come to me, all who are tired and overloaded, and I will relieve you. Matthew 11:28. It is not a generic advice. It is a direct call, personal, urgent. He does not say organize his life first or be strong and then come. He calls in the middle of tiredness, stress, confusion. This by itself is already an act of deep love. Many people think that the rest that Jesus offers is like a spiritual nap. But it is not just a matter of relaxing the body, it is about experiencing inner peace, the one that sustains when everything around collapses. Jesus talks about a soft yoke and a light burden, which sounds even contradictory in today's world. But this is the point: it does not promise the absence of struggles, but constant presence in their midst. With it, the weight of life does not disappear, but changes in nature. The yoke, in the culture of the time, was an instrument placed on two oxen to divide the load. Jesus is saying, "Come with me, divide this to me." It changes everything. It is not about winning alone. It is about walking beside him, letting his strength sustain us where ours no longer realizes. The proposal is clear change, exhausting self-sufficiency for a relationship with God based on surrender and confidence. And the most beautiful of all this? Jesus does not make this invitation based on our performance. It does not require a flawless track record nor clean record. He invites who is tired, who failed, those who carry heavy bales, whether they are guilty, fear, hurt, or unreachable expectations. It is a call to all who try to handle and ended up frustrated. He finds us exactly where we are and loves us anyway. You may be fighting with anxiety, stuck in a routine that only sucks. Perhaps the feeling of uselessness has taken over. Jesus sees it, and it does not come with judgment, but with rest. No rest like the world offers, but something deeper, more solid. The rest of the soul, a kind of peace that is not explained, only experiences. And yes, this is real as far as it seems now. Do you know that moment when prayer turns just sigh? What do you not even know what to say? It is precisely where this invitation gains strength. You don't need perfect words, assembled sentences, just a sincere heart. Jesus wants to relieve his burden, but he respects his decision. You need to say yes. And this one, however small, is already beginning to change everything, one step at a time. Now, maybe you are thinking, but how do I accept this invitation in practice? How to live this yoke light in such a heavy world? This answer begins with something simple but powerful: honest prayer. It is she who paves the way for this real delivery. That's what we're going to talk about at the next point. There are people who think to pray they need to decorate beautiful phrases, use difficult words, or maintain a spiritually correct posture. But God is not interested in performances, he wants sincerity. Honest prayer is one that is born from the exhausted, injured, confused heart. And it is precisely this prayer that moves heavens. When we stop trying to impress, and it begins to simply be, the conversation with God becomes real, alive, transformative. Have you tried to talk to God as if you were venting with a trusted friend? Like, "God, today I'm exhausted. I can't take it anymore." It is at this level of vulnerability that we begin to experience something different. The consolation comes not because of the right words, but because of the right presence. And it does not depend on the place or the time. It can be in traffic, in the bath, or even tears on the pillow. Sincere prayer has the power to get us out of automatic mode. Sometimes we are so overwhelmed that we don't even realize how silent we are silent. But when we talk to God with a naked heart, we make room for him to start healing areas that we didn't even know they were hurting. This is not magic, it's relationship. And, as in every true relationship, honesty is the base. A simple exercise to start: take a notebook and write a prayer like a letter. No filter, no perfect believer. Write about what hurts, what irritates, what confuses. Talk about the stress of the day, about the anxiety you feel, about that request for forgiveness you have not yet been able to do. This is prayer. This is to relate to God of truth. And often these prayers are the beginning of a deep transformation. It is amazing how prayer changes the environment, not because circumstances are resolved immediately, but because our interior begins to align with the peace that comes from God. That peace that exceeds understanding and brings rest, even in the midst of chaos. It is not an escape from reality. It is strengthening to face it with a new perspective. When we pray with honesty, we exchange heavy burdens for spiritual force. And don't worry if you don't feel anything in the first moments. Sometimes praying looks dry, without emotion. But it's not about emotion, it's about connection. Persevere in prayer is like keeping a conversation alive that slowly deepens intimacy. And the more intimate of God you become, the more natural it is to pour out your heart, and the more clear the way of hope is, even in difficult times. Honest prayer opens the doors to an even deeper step: surrender. When we no longer try to hide anything from God, we can finally give it everything to Him. And that's where a radical change begins. We exchange control for trust, anxiety for peace. And that's exactly what we're going to explore now. Trying to solve everything alone is like rowing against the tide. You wear out, frustrate, and don't get out of place. It is natural to want to control things, but living like this is a certain recipe for stress, anxiety, and often spiritual frustration. The truth is that, as capable as we are, there are limits. And it is in this limit that surrender is no longer a weakness and becomes an act of courage. When we surrender to God, we recognize that we need Him more than our own solutions. It is liberating to stop carrying bales that were never ours to carry. And believe me, many of the weights that overload us come from frustrated attempts to control the uncontrollable. When you decide to trust that God is in control, something changes inside you. It does not mean that the problems disappear, but that you stop facing them alone. Surrender is to stop fighting God and start fighting with Him by your side. Have you tried to solve a problem 1,000 times, just to realize that the more you try, worse it is? This is the moment when surrender needs to go on the scene. It is not withdrawal. It is a repositioning. It is to say, Lord, I did everything I could. Now, I put it in your hands. And this delivery needs to be practical. It can be to insist on something. It can be silence instead of arguing. It can be rest even when everything screams for you to act. A good practice is to include in daily prayer a sincere question: Sir, what am I trying to control that I should surrender you? This simple question can reveal the root of much of your tiredness. Sometimes the weight is not in the circumstances, but in the way we are trying to carry them. And when delivering, you make room to experience something that only God can give: peace that does not depend on the circumstances, but on His presence. Surrender also involves accepting that God's time is not always ours. And then the difficulty comes in, right? Because we want everything for yesterday. But when you trust that God knows what He does, He learns to rest even in not yet. This rest brings a deep consolation, the certainty that you are being cared for, even when nothing seems to happen. And over time, this inner peace becomes its new standard. It may seem strange at first. After all, culture says that being strong is holding on everything alone. But the true strength is to recognize when it is time to release. Let go what gets sick. Give up pride. In a hurry, control. And it only really happens when we understand who God is: a loving Father who does not abandon us when we fall, but raises us with grace and purpose. And the good news? You don't have to go through this surrender process alone. God, in His wisdom, has given us something powerful to help us with this walk: the Christian community. That's what we will talk about next. God never designed us to live isolated. From the beginning, the idea has always been coexistence, exchange, mutual support. But in practice, we tend to close each other when you need help. The problem is that carrying bales alone only increases weight. But when we divide what we are going through with trusted people, something changes. The Christian community is a concrete expression of God's love. This is where we find comfort, encouragement, and direction. It's not about perfection, much less on maintaining appearances. It is about connecting with real people who also fights, who also stumbles, but who is willing to walk along. Sometimes God responds to a prayer not with an instant miracle, but with a hug, a friendly word, a shoulder where you can rest. This is community. This is grace in the form of people. Maybe you have disappointed with people before who never, but don't let bad experiences close your heart to what God can do through healthy relationships. We are not talking about exposing themselves to anyone, but of seeking intentional ties with those who share the same faith. Small groups, mentoring, support ministries, prayer friends. All this can be the beginning of a new time. A simple step is to approach a church that lives the values of the gospel in practice. Look for opportunities to serve, to participate, to listen and be heard. If you are shy, start with a message, a coffee with someone you admire. Gradually, the previously distant environment begins to become a refuge. And it does not underestimate the power of a sincere conversation. It may be God's channel to release hope on a difficult day. The community is also a place of intercession. When you don't have the strength to pray, others pray for you. When you can't see exit, someone reminds you that there is hope. It is as if God's arms gain human form. And when you are part of it, you not only receive it, you also become an answer to others. It is a divine exchange where everyone comes out strengthened. The Bible is full of examples of people who lived in communion: the disciples, the early church. Even Jesus had an intimate circle. He valued the presence of others, even being the Son of God. It already tells us a lot. If even he sought company, who are we to try to face everything alone? The path of faith is not a lonely journey, it is a shared path. And when walking with others, we often find something precious: that God's grace acts even when we think it's too late. That it is always possible to start over. May the forgiveness and love of God are greater than any burden or failure. And it's about this grace, renewing, surprising, transformative, that we're going to talk about now. Grace is one of those words that we hear so much in the Christian environment that risks losing the impact. But when you really understand what it means, everything changes. The grace of God is the opposite of merit. It is love shed even when we fail, even when we have nothing to offer. Not only does she forgive, she restores. And more than that, it gives us a chance to start over as many times as necessary. Do you know that weight of guilt that keeps you from moving on? That feeling that you missed too much, what disappointed to God, the others? Grace comes precisely to break this chain. No matter the size of the burden, the past that condemns you, or the wrong decisions you have made, when you deliver this to Jesus, he not only relieves weight, he transforms. Change shame for dignity, fear for hope. You may have lived for a long time trying to make up for mistakes, carrying the stress of trying to be good enough. But grace invites us to stop running after acceptance and simply receive. This is not spiritual irresponsibility, it is faith in action. It is trusting that God's love is greater than our mess, that he specializes in creating beauty from our rubble. It is interesting how grace also changes our vision on others. When we understand that it was forgiven, it forgives more lightly. It is easier to release grudges, relieve tensions, and see each other with compassion. Living under grace makes us less rigid, less critical, more human. It is like taking a deep breath after a long time stuck, a relief that plays body, soul, and spirit. You can start living this. Start today. You don't need a special event, nor a radical change overnight. Start with one step. Confess to God what has weighed, what has hurt, which needs to be left behind. Receive the forgiveness he is already offering. And from that, decide to walk differently. Grace is not an end point, it is a new paragraph full of possibilities. Grace also enables us. It's not just a second chance, it's spiritual strength to continue. Even when we slip again, even when we don't feel worthy yet. She reminds us, day after day, that we are loved children, that there is purpose even in pain, and that with God, nothing is lost. Each morning your mercies are renewed. This is more than biblical poetry, it is reality for those who believe. And when we start walking with this conscience, the Baals do not disappear by magic, but they no longer define who we are. We found rest, inner peace, purpose, and we are remembered that there is someone carrying the weight with us. Someone who said, "Come to me, all who are tired." And keep saying that today. And so, this restart becomes daily, possible, real. Now it's with you. After all we reflect here, the question is, are you willing to deliver your burdens? Are you ready to stop fighting alone and accept the rest that Jesus offers? It's not about changing everything overnight, but taking one step at a time. Start today. Talk to God with sincerity. Look for someone reliable to talk. Recognize that you don't have to carry everything on your back. What would your life be like if you really believe you no longer need to live under the weight of guilt, fear, or self-sufficiency? And if, instead of trying to be strong all the time, you learn to trust the force that comes from above? Think about it. Because while you try to handle everything, Jesus continues to repeat, "Come to me." So how about experimenting? How about changing tiredness for peace, stress for hope, anxiety for sincere prayer? You are not alone on this journey. God is closer to what it seems, and the beginning that you are looking for so much to be a prayer away. If this content spoke to you, don't keep it just for you. Share with someone who is also overwhelmed. And of course, take advantage and subscribe to the channel to continue receiving messages that strengthen faith and bring direction to life. Activate notifications and follow the next videos. There is still much more to come, and God has something new for you in every step.